Give me hit.
Hey there. That worked awesome. No
Yeah, it
glitch.
did. It did. Good morning.
Teamwork. Good morning.
Good morning. And we're going to be talking about office relationships.
Yes, we are.
The
This
good,
came up
the
really
bad,
for
and the
two.
ugly.
Yes. This came up really for two reasons. One was because we were talking yesterday, Heather, about what should we talk about? What's a good topic? We did our pre-show planning and you said something juicy. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So office relationships are juicy. And then the other thing that we're noticing is that there's a lot of employee relations issues that are coming up that we're being asked to help out with either companies or actually people are calling us and saying, "Hey, I've been laid off," or they're putting me on a PIP. How do I handle this? And so we're
hmm
being asked to
hmm
help in those situations. So a lot of ER in the system. And not to toot my own horn, but I was just named one of the top employee relations voices on LinkedIn. That's true,
hmm
but I have, and Ray does too, and Heather, we have a lot of employee relations experience between working at the
Yeah.
hotel and in the restaurant industry. A lot of ER there. Ray,
Right.
you have done a lot of ER in your time.
So true. So true. Internationally done ER and talk about getting complex. I mean, yeah, U.S. is tough enough, but then you go, overseas or into Latin America, it's a
Mm.
totally different ball game. But no, it is a really good topic, and I think this is a good time of year to start, thinking about this from an organizational perspective.
Exactly. And so we're not saying you shouldn't have a workplace relationship. There are lots of people that do, and there's lots of companies that actually like people to have workplace relationships. I remember John Chambers when we worked at Cisco. He used to encourage people to date and he used to encourage people to get married from Cisco because he said, well, Cisco's a lifestyle. And so there's no better way to be in a lifestyle than somebody who is also part of that lifestyle and knows what Cisco's like. So he really thought that it was a great situation for people to be involved with each other in the workplace, which there are good things and there are bad things
hmm
about it. So, Heather, what is your experience with relationships in the workplace, having been in a lot of different situations over the years?
You know, gosh, what I've seen is not good.
Oh,
You
go
know,
ahead. Tell us the not good.
the drama that is involved that can happen, that in turn then impacts the rest of the team, and then that continues to filter, and then your customers or clients start feeling not well taken care of because you've got people with stress, you got people with drama. They don't want to be in the same room together because things didn't work out. So I actually had quite the opposite experience than at least what you saw at Cisco. I mean, I had one situation where the chef and the director of accounting were married. That worked out well. It was fine. But outside of
hmm
that, um, it didn't really go well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's we always see the negatives. We don't see the positives a lot of times in the roles that we have. But I think folks have got to be very careful, around these kinds of relationships because you know it's all good. It's all good until the breakup, or it's all good until the big fight, and those things always bleed into the workplace and cause problems and can have challenges. I think it's you know, like Jason said, in certain industries, it's much more accepted and common. Um, in other industries, probably not as much. I mean, in manufacturing or in service industries, you probably want to be real careful around that. In technology or other areas, I think it's looked upon, fine, they're dating or fine, they're going out, but I think it's got to be you got to be super careful if you're thinking about something like this.
I threw caution to the wind, and I had a very long-term relationship with someone when I was at Cisco. So the good news is that we were both single, so that made it acceptable. But
Mhm.
Right.
it was great until it wasn't great. And the thing that was good about my relationship is we were actually even in the same department, which was not so great, but we did the same job. And so it was nice having somebody to talk to and have that camaraderie and know what was going on. So in one sense, John Chambers was right about that, that it was good to have somebody who understood. Now, the bad thing about that was being equals at work. If somebody got something that the other person didn't get, it was
Oh.
it it was a
Mhm.
very tenuous situation, and you had to walk on eggshells a little bit. Like, oh my gosh, like what was your bonus? Oh, I got this bonus. Oh, well, that's 15% more than I got. Wow, why did that happen? Or, hey, I'm going to this conference that they're paying for. Oh, really? I asked for them to pay for my, really small expense, and they said, sorry, Charlie, you're out of luck.
Mhm.
So there
Mhm.
were things that basically fostered some ill will towards the
Mhm.
organization when you saw things that were different. Now, I don't think it's very often that you have somebody that you're in a relationship with in the same department and do the same job. I mean, that's a little bit crazy. So I don't think that happens that much. Maybe it happens more than you would think. But yeah, there was definitely competition that arose, and that was difficult. And then you're right. When things went bad, it was like really bad. So if you were having a fight or you were having some really serious discussion about something, you can get up and you can go to work and you can walk away from that situation and get some time to clear your mind. But all of a sudden, you're at home the night before having disagreement, and then you get up in the morning, you drive into work or you carpool into work,
You carpool
and
into
then
work.
yeah, then you go to the same meeting and you're like, okay, this is just not getting any better because the tension just doesn't dissipate. She's looking at me and going, you're a jerk. And I'm sitting there going, oh, why doesn't she understand my point of view? So yeah,
Mm.
it was a little bit. It's a little bit difficult. Now, thankfully, nothing bad happened in terms of the way things can really go down in a bad relationship. I mean, not that we were like that, but I'm opening the kimono here. But yeah, the relationship took its course and it ended. But I've seen these things where you're married and you have a relationship with somebody in the organization, and then they find out about it, and then the the wife goes into work and confronts the
Mhm.
person,
Right.
or the VP at one company that I worked with who was sending pictures of himself, to put it politely, to somebody in the workplace, and then he broke it off, and then the person sent those personal pictures, which may have been naked, to everyone on a huge distribution list internally, and
Oh my
so they
gosh.
both got fired, or the people that have a relationship that really goes wrong, and one person slaps a restraining order on the other one, and then the other one slaps a restraining order on them, and then they both can't work in the same building. You've got to figure that all out. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong and do go wrong. But I think your points here are good. So what's the first one, Heather? Understand the dynamics. What is this one?
So I essentially, why do we have handbooks? Well, something happens and now we got a handbook. And I think if there's an understanding, a universal understanding of how the organization is going to manage and handle
Mhm.
relationships, and then dig deeper as leadership to have an understanding of how this works, how relationships can be positive and negative, how to set limits, and they need to be trained because this could turn into a harassment
Mhm.
issue, it can turn into a lot of things. And so having the knowledge and the understanding from the top down is absolutely critical. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a hot mess.
Well, I think that the
Mhm.
important thing here is that managers and executives need to know that these things are going to happen,
Mhm.
and they need to be on the lookout for them. And the important thing is you need to make sure that if there's inappropriate relationships, meaning somebody is dating someone who works for them, then that really becomes something that you really need to manage and look at, because that really can set some difficult precedent in terms of the organization. I don't think you ever want to be a person in an organization that discourages relationships, but I think having conversations about the fact that we don't support relationships that are manager to employee, and that makes things really
Mhm.
difficult.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And even you know in organizations where you've got family members working in the same organization, that's another
Relationship. Yeah.
dynamic you have to think about, because uh, you know many many industries are small industries, or companies are founded by family members. uh, and just making sure you've got the right, like you said, Heather, policies in place around nepotism, around organization, around relationships, so folks understand what they can and can't do, and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate.
Hmm. And the relationships go beyond two people dating. Like you said, it could be family members. It could be two friends
Hmm.
that end
Yep.
up no longer being friends.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, and that happens a lot. I mean, you've got folks that people spend 8-10 hours a day, working, and their work, coworkers become their best friends, and those things can go wrong too, like you said, and
mhm,
and that can turn into significant conflict, which is kind of bullet point number two.
Well, that's a good
Um,
point. There's a lot of times over the years where I've been in situations where there was a manager or a VP, and they were very good friends with somebody that worked with them, and you heard, oh well, they're golfing buddies, they golf all the time, or their
hmm
families go on vacation together.
hmm
How can
mhm.
anybody get
Right.
a fair review here, or get fairly compensated when his best friend is in the group and tells him everything. So yeah, that can be a really difficult dynamic when you have close friends working for you as well. Like you mentioned, that's tough.
hmm Yeah, no, exactly.
Right.
And I think the real key on dealing with that kind of conflict, is really, you know, as much as you can, it needs to stay out of the office and out of the day to day work. Because it can affect it in a negative way, as well as it'll affect the team.
Right.
But I think that the key here really is, you know, talking to your manager about it if it's not working out, if it's uncomfortable, bringing it to HR, and finding a resolution that's going to work for everybody. And there may not be one, and like Jason said, people may end up getting let go and being asked to go do something else. And
Right.
and I think that you got to be prepared for that.
Then
And so that's
yeah,
why you know you got to be real careful, as an employee in these organizations, around those relationships, those workplace relationships.
the nepotism ones are really hard as
Hmm.
well. So I think that the best thing that we've typically done with companies and clients that we've worked at is basically say you cannot have a family member in the same department, and you can't
Hmm.
have a family member working through the same vice president. You can't do that
Hmm.
because it just makes things too difficult. I mean, I've been
Mhm.
in places where that hasn't happened, and you're in a conversation and you go talk to the VP, and you're like, oh my God, like this, it's so hard to deal with Bob. I just got Bob on it, and he's just a pain. He's a pain in the ass. He doesn't listen. And, he's not doing what he needs to do on this project. And I just don't know what to do. And the VP looks at you and goes, well, Bob's my brother. Oh, and Yes, that has happened to me before. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
why not being in those situations where you are in, you don't know the family relationships and you step into it. So I think nepotism, or if you are a family business and you do have cousins and brothers and nieces and nephews that are all working there, I think it's reasonable to let all of the um, people of the organization knows that there's a strong family ties here, so you can really be careful with your words. Unlike me, but I learned since I was
been there,
young.
done that.
Yep. No, exactly. And we actually did an acquisition a couple of years ago down in Colorado Springs where it was a family owned business. And as part of the integration, we had to separate, you know, the HR team, which was, kind of a son of the founder, making
Mm,
sure that there was, that they reported to somebody else. The daughter-in-law of the founder was running finance, so that had to be separated out. So you've got to figure all the stuff out, especially in an M&A transaction, because
mm,
that those are the ones where you've got deep, deep family connections that are part of the organizations, and you got to figure out how to separate those out so you don't have that founder and all the family members reporting to the founder.
So let's go to the social media one. The social media one is one that also is really problematic.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen situations where a relationship goes bad and then somebody just goes rogue on
mm,
Facebook or goes rogue on Instagram or Twitter and
Hmm.
airs all these ugly things about the individual. And it's a really ugly post, and all these people see it, and things are said that shouldn't be said. I mean, social media has a really huge impact in situations like that, especially if somebody isn't thinking clearly, like we can do when we're being emotional. So having really clear social media policies, I think, are really important as well too. About
yes.
and you definitely don't want that war going on company social media policies, or if you're going to go on and you're going to blast your ex or blast the person that you're with right now, I would say probably not good to mention the company and other things. If you're while you're at it, it's probably good to stay away from that. But just this is complicated, and you need a trained professional to sort through this when these things do happen.
Mhm. When I've seen policies, companies I've worked for that really push about what you do inside and outside of work, especially for people that are in sales,
Hmm.
you're still a representative of the company. Now, you can't tell someone what to do outside of work, but if you have the right culture in place, then people will act accordingly, and knowing that they're also got the company organization as, you know, part of their name, if you will. So you have people bashing other people, then what does it say about the organization? Now your organization doesn't look so great either.
Yeah, and now the whole um, TikTok uh, resignations where
Mm,
people film themselves being fired via you know via Teams or you know so it's really going to be important around this one that assume you're going to be recorded because that's what's happening. That's the new norm. Um, so being very crisp and very deliberate in your communication is so important around, especially around social media, because it's becoming much more open and people are very comfortable doing that now, even though they shouldn't.
So you're saying break up with somebody with tact if you do it on social media?
Yeah, never a good idea to break up on social media, whether it's a work relationship, whether it's a termination or anything else. Yeah, doing it on virtually is not a good solution.
no.
How many times have I been in situations where there were inappropriate relationships, and then the husband or the wife found out about it on social media, and then they went to the head of HR or they went to the CEO and said, I found out about this inappropriate relationship and they're spending company time texting and doing all these things. You need to fire that person. Or you need to fire that or this person. I mean, that happens all of the time. And so if you are the person that's getting spurned, sometimes you have a pretty vengeful side to you and it's comes out, and so you've got to be you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful with these situations. It's happened so many times. So you've got to be real. True. It's a tough thing to deal with.
Yeah. So I think that in closing, you've got to be super careful around these workplace relationships. If you've got one that you're trying to deal with, let us know. We can help you manage through it and kind of get through the issue and come out the other side in a lot better position.
Yeah. So have strong policies and procedures. Have a strong handbook. Have a strong social media platform, or have a strong social media policy, and then have your managers trained. Have them trained in how to handle sexual harassment issues, because at the end of the day, a relationship in the workplace can potentially become a sexual harassment issue. So have your managers know what are the hot buttons, what are the words that are being said in if a sexual harassment complaint comes up. So have your managers trained. And as we mentioned, ER is all over the board right now. We're seeing a lot of these issues. I'm getting a lot of calls for people to help people out just because there's so many things happening right now. And so if you need some help, we're available.
Yeah,
so how do they get a hold of us? How do we do that?
Well, for me, it's Ray at Thrive, REY at thrivehrconsulting.com.
And I'm Jason at thrivehrconsulting.com, and you can reach us at 888-393-3453.
I know you love doing that.
I do.
And Heather, how do I get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or also you can email heather.simmons@thrivehrconsulting.com.
All right. Fantastic. Talk later. Everyone, have a great day.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.